Uh-oh. In the Hunt is an arcade shooter released in 1993. It was later ported in 1995 for Sega Saturn, Windows 95, and what I played it on and what you're seeing here, PlayStation 1. It was developed by Irem, the studio best known for R-Type, and many of the same people that worked on In the Hunt later got bored and went on to form Nazca, developing Metal Slug 1, 2, and 3, games that I love. So what's the premise? What's the meaty lore of In the Hunt, or as it's known in Japan, Kaitai Daisensu? The game takes place in what's basically Waterworld, an organization bent on evil known as the Dark Anarchy Society, has melted the polar ice caps to take over the world. You play as the Yellow Submarine, also known as the Gramvia, and have to stop the anarchists by blowing up their Antarctic headquarters. In the Hunt is not the first game to feature the Dark Anarchy Society, but it is part of a quartet of Dark Anarchy games made by Irem, along with Air Duel, Undercover Cops, and Gun Force 2. Gameplay is basically moving left to right, across 6 levels, shooting in 3 directions. Torpedoes fire forward with X, vertical missiles fire up with circle, and every time you fire a vertical missile you also drop depth charges beneath you. It's not a bad strategy to hold your finger down on both circle and X, firing continuously so you can focus on weaving and bombing, especially since your weapons can block most projectiles. Then there's the upgrades, which can be found both underwater and carried by helicopters circling above the water. The vertical missile upgrades are capsules. They cycle between the letters M and A, and depending on when you pick it up, which cycle it's on, determines which kind of upgrade you get for your vertical attack. M stands for missiles, changes the number of missiles you fire and the missile type. And A stands for machine guns and floating mines. Maybe the Japanese word makes more sense. And then this part's a bit confusing too, because not only does the upgrade you get depend on whether the capsule is cycled between the letters M or A, but whether it's at the water surface or underwater. Torpedo upgrades are a bit easier to keep track of. Depending on which color you pick up determines which weapon you get. There's 3. Green for hyper torpedo, blue for supersonic torpedo, and red for cracker. Not that I ever had a moment to think about what upgrade I was picking up. There's always way too much chaos on screen at once to ever think of anything. But if you have an upgrade you like and you pick up a new one, just know that it will overwrite whatever weapon you already have equipped. My favorite of all of them was the Cracker Torpedo, which fires a short missile that then radiates bomb outwards, but I got to use it so little. I would typically get it at a later stage and then explode as soon as I picked it up. There's also red spheres with stars on them to collect, or treasure balls, like coins in Sonic. Collect 100 and you get an extra life. I don't think I've ever picked up enough for an extra life. A lot of the time, they feel like tricks to kill you, to steal your quarters. Like in the tunnel in Stage 5, where volcanic rock is hurtling towards you. Go for the coin, get blowed up. Maybe the biggest issue with In the Hunt, the most frustrating part, is its movement. It feels sluggish, and pretty much every attack one-shots you, and your sub often doesn't move fast enough for you to react. It is an arcade game, so the principle is to waste your parents' money. Otherwise, getting good isn't so much reaction time as it is knowing exactly where enemies are before they're there. So you're gonna die to a lot of BS. The arcade cabinet and the Sega Saturn versions of the game both featured slowdown, which is, unfortunately, not in the PlayStation version. I like to think of slowdown as a feature, like bullet time. It would have made it a lot easier to dodge. But since In the Hunt is bent on killing the player, I recommend playing it like a trust fund kid at the arcade. Turn on Infinite Continues with Game Shark or whatever you have to do, so you don't have to worry about game overing. I don't consider it a game to learn from and master like, I don't know, Ghosts and Goblins. In the Hunt is more of a 30-minute break. That's more fun to blast through beginning to end, not die and get a game over. There are 6 levels in all, with their own underwater theme, and each takes about 5 minutes to beat even on hard. Apparently, the Japanese stage layout is slightly different in its order. The levels can seem disconnected from one another unless you have the game manual. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a PlayStation manual, but there is a Sega Saturn one online, which kind of explains why you end up fighting the Statue of Liberty and a sea serpent. Not that it really matters. You fight them because they look cool. At the end of each level, there's a boss, and sometimes a mini-boss halfway through the stage. Bosses are either pushover easy or designed to gobble quarters. There's a good mix of mechanics for how you tackle bosses. The first, a crab submarine, is a straightforward weave and shoot. Then you've got these twin cephalod pods to dodge around. And then my favorite, the Statue of Liberty in the seabed ruins. You have to drop pillars from the sky or the surface to melt his face off. He's a pushover, but it's fun to drop these pillars on him to beat him. The final boss is where the arcade goers must have spent the most money. It's unfortunate the last boss looks like a... Though it throws tons of projectiles at you, it's a bit anticlimactic after everything else you've already fought. And now for the reason I played this game at all. It's the visuals. The visuals are great. I think I got nostalgic for a memory of level 2, or maybe it was level 4, back when I rented this game from Hollywood Video. I don't know, but I had the itch for the vibes. The visuals are that great blend of chaos and detailed sprite work that most people are familiar with, probably from Metal Slug. It's beautiful here. The spouts the explosions make when they hit the water, the way ships crumble when they're destroyed, the environmental destruction as you blow up a tank, it's all awesome. I don't know what to call this Irem or Nazca style. It's got that rugged machinery look like everything runs on diesel or Dead Dreams, a kind of post-apocalyptic cartoon grit. The only problem, if it is a problem, is all that noise on screen makes it hard to dodge, but so what? Although, to be fair, maybe, In the Hunt does show its age if you pause and look too close. Many of the objects move like paper dolls, including your sub. But because it's in constant movement, it's fairly well disguised, especially since everything is blowing up. The backgrounds are generally great too. I like that it's not all just apocalypse. You move from deep blue icebergs to these Kowloon docks, where you teach the plebs their place by blowing up their fishing huts, onto a crumbling underwater city. That's hard to say. It's not all visually interesting though. The level 5 caves are pretty dull environmentally, but then you get that sea dragon who looks so great. The last level is probably the worst designed of all. It has way too much noise to take in. The Dark Anarchists have no chill. The art direction was designed by Akio Oyabu, definitely saying that wrong, who also worked on Metal Slug and King of Fighters among others, and it's why the style is so recognizable. It's fun to realize, playing in the Hunt, that Metal Slug, for how much praise its art direction get, was not some instantaneous or spontaneous development. It was a process. All those designs were hammered out in the Dark Anarchy Society games, among others. As far as the sound work goes, it's a-okay. You better get used to the thumping sound of torpedoes firing, because for the most part, that's all you'll be hearing. Because firing missiles and explosions drowns the music out almost entirely. But if you pause the game, and you can hear the music, oftentimes it slaps. By default, In the Hunt runs on arcade mode, but the PlayStation version of the game also has PlayStation mode. And then there's PlayStation Sound. I wonder what this changes. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, the soundtrack is completely different. It's a bit jarring. It sounds like somebody who went on to work for MapleStory or on a private Ragnarok Online server. A little too pleasant for what's on screen, but I kinda dig how weird and unfitting it is. Some levels work better than others. While level 1 sounds plain silly, level 2 is pretty great. The only other difference with the PlayStation game mode is the addition of shields, which is a welcome bonus. In the Hunt does have co-op, and it feels like it's meant to be played by two, considering the number of power-ups in some areas. And two of the endings to the game can only be seen if you play with another person, but I was alone making this video, so I didn't get to experience co-op or the endings. And it's funny, there are 4 endings in total. Besides the co-op ending, there's the one you get for playing the game and using continues, and then the ending you get for beating the game and not using any continues, which is the more melancholy ending, in which your ship is destroyed with the enemy base. So the happy ending is the one that you could obtain more easily, where you escape with your ship after defeating all of the dark anarchist society. In the Hunt is a simple arcade run and gun. It's fun for an afternoon, especially if you have a second player and you turn on infinite continues. You can play it pretty easily on the Switch store. It's in the arcade archives, whatever that is, and it was digitally released on PS4. There's also some console called the Evercade, which will apparently have In the Hunt on it. I don't know what that is. Or you can play it any way you can. Alright, thanks for watching. Take care.